Hey up lads and lasses, Danfire here, back again bringing you, yet again, another review on this Sunday. King's Blood, The Defense. King's Blood, The Defense is a strategic defense game with totally different method of gameplay compared to conventional defense games. Well, that's absolutely bloody tripe, innit? Let's just be real here. This game is basically a browser game from the early 2000s. Anyway, let's get back to it. King's Blood is a story-based strategic defense game with an ending. The game offers normal, defense and conquest battles without limits to level. The four unique heroes of King's Blood are powerful aids to the player, each with its own story. You can create your own character by choosing its appearance, gender and name. The player can hire various troops and soldiers from many nations, including the Knights of Bordeaux. There are dominance dynamics among soldiers and troops, and the unique abilities and skills of the soldiers affect the gameplay greatly as they level up. Extract enchanted bloodstones to power up soldiers, items and abilities as you see fit. Players can obtain items by defeating the vampire lords in conquest battles to change gear that will increase the abilities of the soldiers and themselves. So let's quickly jump into settings, and there's some settings. Yeah, okay. Next up, graphics. Now the graphics in this game are fantastic, I have to admit. They really remind me of a PC game called Darkest Dungeon, which was an incredibly good roguelike game. Very, very enjoyable. They've pretty much copied, I don't know, it could actually be the same developer under a different name, but it is more or less identical to Darkest Dungeon in the graphics, and I really like this dark, grim, sort of cartoony 2D style that they've gone for. Moving on to sound quick. This sounds pretty decent. I quite like the music in this game. It just fits the style really well. The combat sound is a little meh. It's not amazing. It's not terrible though either. It's quite sat in the middle. The noise of the actual combatants fighting is not too bad, but it's kind of boring after a while, and this game has quite the grind to it. Anyway, moving on to some gameplay. Now the gameplay revolves around having your line of troops, which you can have sat still, and this is where it does sort of differentiate between other defense scales of this style, where normally you're just sending units and they just move straight across the map constantly until they get to the enemy base, and you eventually blow that up. In this one though, your units are stationary, they stay still, and they're defending your hero. Your hero is basically your base in this circumstance, and you're sort of juggling between defending yourself from the enemy attacks when they charge at you, and charging at the enemy as well to try and get your damage out and kill them off before they can summon in more troops. If any of your troops die, if you lose the whole squad of 3 men, you can then resummon your own troops as well. This costs bloodstones, and bloodstones you get for killing enemies. You do get plenty of bloodstones, so you don't need to worry about that at all. There are 4 unit types, each that have sort of counters towards each other. You have infantrymen, spearmen, cavalry, archers, and then there's a couple of special types where you have priests, which heal units, and also a hero which will run to the front line and just keep attacking until he dies, and you can resummon him as well. Now it's pretty normal for rock, paper, scissors style. Infantry beat spearmen, spearmen beat cavalry, cavalry beat infantry. What makes it kind of more interesting is the fact you can move your formation around. So you can have your spearmen at the front, or maybe when the enemy cavalry is about to charge you, you move the spearmen to the front, put them in defense so they take less damage and can counter the spearmen faster. Or maybe if they're charging in with infantry, you counter-charge them with your own cavalry to get more damage out. Placement is semi-important as well. The further back your units are to the rear of your formation, the increased charge damage they're going to get, so leaving your cavalry at the very, very far back works pretty well. They get a massive 30% charge bonus, which you can just run straight into them, and yeah, it's quite a lot of damage, especially since cavalry seem to have a bonus to charge anyway, which sort of makes sense. There are some nuances as well with some of these infantry and stuff. Like I mentioned earlier, the cavalry do have the increased charge damage, but spearmen can hit the enemies behind. And if they're behind, say, infantry in a defensive formation, they can attack from the second row. Now, early on, this game is fairly boring, unfortunately. It gets very tedious, and it takes a while. It took me about 3-4 hours to grind to get to a point where I actually found the gameplay challenging. When it becomes challenging, though, it is a different beast entirely and becomes very, very fun to play. You just need to persevere and make it through that part. Your basic start is with the Knights of the Bordelao. You can upgrade once you hit certain levels and start putting in units from different factions, and these factions also have bonuses to them. For example, there is no bonuses on the Knights of Bordelao, but when you go up and go to the Knights of the Holy Blood Order, they have bonuses against undead. So depending on what you're facing, it could be nice to mix and match some units sometimes, or have a full faction out if you're specifically going against things that are undead, for example. There are 2 other factions you can unlock in the game. However, 3 of the factions are stuck behind a paywall, which sucks a little bit. This is no PvP in this game as far as I can tell, but it is all PvE, and the fact that you can't get 3 of the factions at all without paying any kind of money is definitely a pretty big downside, especially because there's some quite cool things in there. There's Spartan infantry and Roman soldiers, legionnaires and that kind of thing, and they are locked, unfortunately, and cost you money to purchase. The other factions, though, are unlocked just by increasing your level. The upgrade system is pretty basic as well. You get XP for your troops as they kill things and deal damage, and you complete your quests and missions. There is also these enchanted bloodstones that you spend your bloodstones on, with a success low and success high. I haven't seen much difference between the 2. I'm guessing, though, that the success high gives you a chance of getting better enchanted bloodstones. What these do is you stick them on a troop and they provide a bonus or a buff to that troop. For example, a +5 or +6 attack bloodstone will give 20% more damage to that unit, as a +2 HP bloodstone will give about 10% extra HP. You do also gather gear from defeating some of the conquest battles. These conquest battles are boss fights, more or less. So the boss will be there with an army of his own. If you can beat him, you will gain an item for your leader, and these will also boost your troops. For example, I've picked up the mace from the first boss, and that gives me an extra 10% to my infantry damage. So the upgrade system is pretty basic at best there, but it does what it needs to do. The game itself is fairly simple and self-explanatory. They don't explain the battles very well at all, and that certain units counter other units, but you can notice this pretty quickly. Say if you charge your infantrymen into a line of spearmen, you'll notice that the spearmen will have a decrease and your infantrymen will have an increase against that unit type. Moving on, the story in the game is okay. It's actually not too bad at all. You do have to read it, which I wish it was voice acted, but it is a mobile game at the end of the day, so we can't ask for much there anyway. The story, though, is quite interesting. I've been enjoying reading through the story as I've progressed, and yeah, I've definitely been enjoying it. There is an ending to this game at some point, so I'll be looking forward to getting to there and finding out what that is. So, the game is free to play. There are microtransactions and ads, and these can change a few things up. For example, within battles, you can watch an ad. This will increase your damage by 2 times. And there's some bits and pieces like that for watching ads. There is, however, the ability to purchase bloodstones if you start running low. I haven't personally run low on bloodstones, and that's after fully maxing out the amount of troops I can take into a battle, and I still have some, so doesn't seem to be too much of an issue there at all. I tend to earn more bloodstones than I use up during battles as well. There is, however, as I mentioned earlier, paywalls a little bit behind some of the legions. The Legion of Legends, Inquisition, and the Demon Legion all require shop purchase, and one specifically needs Emperor's Gear, which you unlock also by purchasing, unless later on you can unlock these via bosses. I haven't got that far yet. As I said, this game is quite the grind. I've put about 4 or 5 hours into it, and I've only just started unlocking some of the Knights of the Holy Blood Order to use within my army. Some added little benefits to this game though are it is single player and it is offline, so if you're on your way to work and you live in London, for example, and you're on the tube, you can play it, which is quite nice. The ads and stuff like that you choose to watch, which is quite nice as well, so there is no ad spam in this game. You can just play it, and other than maybe the End Legions, I don't know if they're necessary or not for endgame, but at the moment it doesn't look like they are, which is quite cool. So yeah, it's a pretty decent little free-to-play game. And if you want to support the devs, you can. If you don't, and you don't enjoy it, then you don't need to. So to quickly summarize, fantastic graphics, okay sound, some interesting gameplay later on once you get past the sort of tutorial section and you get some of the more hefty fights where you actually need to use your counters and think either if you want to go defensively or aggressively. Makes it a lot more enjoyable at that point. So gameplay does pick up and get better, and the story's not bad either. So that's it for this game. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And yeah, have a good one, guys, and I'll catch you next time.